So, I want to start a video today that I'm calling the case for Heroclix. Why you should play Heroclix, and I haven't really prepared a script for it. Don't really script most of my videos these days. I realize I can kind of keep cohesive thoughts, and usually I think a little bit about the video beforehand and kind of structure it in my mind. And I did think about this for quite a few weeks now, and haven't come up with a specific structure, but I have a general idea of what I want to talk about when it comes to this game. And you know, if you're playing other collectible card games, or if you're just playing board games, or if you're just, you know, thinking about getting into something that's both collectible and a game, and has a competitive environment and has a casual environment. And for me, my favorite game, if we're talking about games that you play in game stores and collectible games, it's Heroclix. You know, you have Warhammer for miniatures. Most people are into that when they're into miniatures. But this is also a miniature game with a far, far smaller customer base than Warhammer. And then you have collectible card games, which, you know, Magic and Pokemon having the largest amount of customers, but then there's new entries into it like Flesh and Blood and Sorcery and Lorcana, One Piece, and now a Star Wars card game. And they all have varying degrees of how successful they are. Magic being the first collectible card game, has a long history of stability, comparatively speaking, to, say, other card games. That there were hundreds of card games made in the 90s, and only 2-3 really survived, with the addition of Yu-Gi-Oh, with Pokemon and Magic. So, you know, if you're concerned about a game that you're going to play that isn't going to stand the test of time, if that's one of your concerns about indie TCGs, obviously, you know, Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh have stood the test of time, and then Warhammer 40K for miniatures has stood the test of time, because there's been other miniature games too, and I'm not sure how old a lot of them are, because I didn't play a lot of miniature games. But Heroclix has been around, not as long as Pokemon, probably not as long as Yu-Gi-Oh. It started in the early 2000s with a game called Mage Knight, and then it was adapted into Heroclix, at which point the rights were bought from DC and Marvel to make Marvel and DC Heroclix. So for the first time, you could have two IPs fighting each other. And I don't think that has really happened before, and it's continued the whole time. So generally speaking, with Heroclix, the most Heroclix are Marvel and DC, but then there's other IPs that they've brought in and either continued to bring in, or, you know, they may have lost the IP or it didn't sell well or whatever. So it has stood the test of time. In fact, so much so that, you know, in 2008, people were worried that Heroclix was going to die, because the company that originally owned it, that was running it, basically was near bankruptcy or in bankruptcy or had to sell it, or it wasn't profitable or whatever. And I think this at some point it was originally owned by Topps. I'm not really clear on all this. I didn't look it up beforehand. But then Wizkids came in, and now it's been a Wizkids game the whole time. And the time period of Heroclix has only been improvement, basically. So from the very beginnings, it was very simplistic in the way it looked, and, you know, that kind of design, and overly complex in its game mechanics, meaning that it was quite difficult to get into. And even today, it's more difficult to get into than a lot of games, like certainly more difficult to get into than Pokemon and Lorcana, and even more difficult, I think, to get into than Warhammer 40K, just because there's so many bits and bobs that are going in the mechanics of the game. So what I want to sort of talk about is, maybe I'll bring in some stuff that are Heroclix related and talk about them. But now that I've covered, you know, sort of its longevity, it's not really going anywhere, even though it really fared badly during the 2020, 2021 years, when everything else was, you know, fared badly at the beginning of 2020, and then things just started booming and money was coming, rushing into every single collectible. I don't get the sense that really happened with Heroclix, and a lot of it could be that it was waning in, say, 2019. I think for me anyway, I think the peak for it was probably around 2016, 2017. That was probably its highest point, and maybe getting back to there now. But it's been sort of, when you go to a local game store, you'll see lots of games being played, mostly Magic, mostly Pokemon, but even Flesh and Blood and Lorcana and that sort of stuff. And you'll see Heroclix, but they're often off in the corner, and there's comparatively not as many Heroclix players, and that I think is even less so now than it was in 2016, 2017. And a lot of that is due to the perceived difficulty of the mechanics. It's hard to get into it, but once you're into it, then it's easy, right? But it's the ramping up new players to do it is difficult for the game. Now, Wizards has been making inroads into that, and so this is something that I want to show you. So these are starter sets that kind of, get you started into the game, and they, they have basically everything you need to play with two people to learn how to play the game. Even better are these, which are sort of like mini board games. They basically have these scenarios that you go through, and they limit the amount of information they're teaching you up front. Each scenario gets more and more information added into it so that you're gradually learning what Heroclix is about. And this shows you sort of the mashing of IPs, because this is Teen Titans Go with Scooby-Doo, and it came from the Batman team-up set. So basically, that's kind of one of the things you can do is, you fight Ninja Turtles against X-Men or Scooby-Doo against Batman or Teen Titans characters. Now, these starter sets, I don't think that they are as robust as the board game-like things that I was showing you, but they are very well made and made to teach you how to play. So if you're just starting with Heroclix, then start with one of the two. And I definitely recommend these board game versions, because they really help someone who hasn't even played any types of games like the ones I've been talking about, and you can get into it, and then you're off to a good pace. Now, once you're playing the game, then you end up with buying booster packs, and booster packs are usually, they have 5 figures, and it's blind, so therefore you end up with randomization, and you could get anything: commons, uncommons, rares, super rares, chases, ultra chases, and then sometimes sets come with larger figures. So then they'll have a super booster that has just one figure in it, and it'll be like a colossal, like basically very large thing. So like your miniatures could actually vary in size. And when you're starting to play the game, you start with the starter set. Now you're buying boosters, and you're getting progressively better and better figures, and you're thinking of playing at the local game store or with other people. There's 2 different types of things you can focus on: either casual play or tournament, competitive play. And the competitive play has its meta, and there's specific figures that are really good and combined in certain teams, and you'll be able to watch, people who are masters at the game construct these teams that have this synergy, and a lot of people will follow suit, and so you'll see, similar teams being fielded against other similar teams, similar to Magic. There's the top decks that are competitive, and then there's others that are less competitive. And then also the casual environment is similar to Commander, mostly one-on-one, but there is 4-player Heroclix. Because it's casual, there's no the stakes aren't the same as competitive, but it's fun to do that sort of thing. And it'd be nice if Heroclix made maps that were 4-player maps, but those are pretty rare to non-existent. There are maps that are a certain size that could be adapted to 4 players, but I don't think there's any specific 4-player maps. So it's usually a one-on-one game, and the maps that I'm talking about, they come in the starter kit, they come in the the board game style starter game. And you play on a map and you move your figures around. They have a certain amount of movement. They have certain powers. They have, for instance, if I look over at this piece here, you can see why it's called Heroclix, because the base there clicks and it turns. So basically, you turn it and the powers change, because those colors on the dial are different powers, and the numeric values are the numeric values of things like movement, attack, defense, that sort of thing. So when a character takes damage or heals, they click one way or the other, clockwise or counterclockwise, and some have different ways of moving that dial around, but that's a pretty rare figure. So basically, the powers of the figure change as the game progresses based on how much damage or healing they've received. And each character is like this, and so you're basically making a team based on these thoughts of, well, what does this do? But also, what does it do in turn 3? Because that will change. So it's not like your typical collectible card game in that, you put down a card, that card is static. That's what it does. And until that card is removed, that card will do that thing. And usually, with instance, in Magic, you'll play the card, it'll do the thing, it'll go away. With enchantments, you'll put down the card, it'll stay there and be a static effect. Creatures will go and they'll be destroyed by being attacked, that sort of stuff, right? But with Heroclix, the individual figure, which represents something similar to a card, is several cards in itself that have different effects and different abilities and different capabilities. So you'll have to consider that when you're making a team, and that's what adds to this complexity. And now, because of these starter kits and these board game starters, Wizkids has done really well at the onboarding, because at first, it was just a myriad of rules, and they weren't organized very well, and it made it difficult for someone to conceptualize how to play the game by reading the rules. Usually you just had to play with someone and have them show you, and hopefully they're not omitting rules to their own benefit, that sort of thing, right? But now you can learn how to play, and they've streamlined it, and hopefully they'll improve even on that. And of course they've even improved, the synergies of the characters and their abilities, and even, how they look. This one is an older character, but we have, newer characters in here that look even better. This is a newer-ish character, I guess. But yeah, it's just interesting that they've continually improved on it, and I'm not sure how many games you can say that it has generally improved, because I think that Magic itself has been same-ish for a very long time, and recently they've tried to innovate, but some people don't consider that an improvement. And I think with Heroclix, for the most part, people think that the innovations that Heroclix has done have been improvements. So basically the game has been more and more immersive and just better in general. And then, there's all these extra little bits and bobs. You can buy these dice tokens that represent, so you can denote that your character has taken an action, and then the dice that represent, say Justice League, if you're playing the Justice League team. Because Wizkids also produced Dice Masters, and in that game, every single individual character had their own little logo on a pair of dice, and it was really neat. So they were able to, basically use that production from that game and port it over in a way into Heroclix. So you got lots of different characters that you can use, and they do all different things, and they represent all the different characters that, if you're into comics, you'll love. If you're only into the comic book movies, maybe you'll not be as familiar with all of them, but it is fun to have Superman fight Thor. It's fun to have Leonardo of the Ninja Turtles fight Scrappy-Doo, that kind of stuff. And that is the main hook for Heroclix. But once you're playing it, the real hook is the depth of the game. I think its complexity, while is a deterrent at times, and if they can improve on ramping people into it, that complexity will become less and less of a deterrent to getting people into the game. But the complexity itself, once people are playing the game, they recognize that there's so many possibilities with this game and so many things you can do, and every time you come up with a team against someone else's team, something different is going to happen, and there's just it just basically boggles the mind of the things that you can do. And Magic the Gathering is like this, that in that way, that its rules may not be near as complex as Heroclix, but because there have been so many sets since the 90s, there are so many different things, so many different card effects, and so many different types of cards that can do different things, that it's impossible to keep track of everything. It's not like a chess game where everyone has the same set of figures and they all do the same thing, so you know what to expect from your opponent. In games like this, in games like Heroclix and Magic and some other games, you have no idea what to expect from your opponent, so you have to build basically your force to oppose almost any kind of strategy. So there's other things that they've been doing recently, which are these cool little funny iconics things, which are basically they've taken memes, which like the Batman slapping Robin meme, and put it into a figure set that you can buy, or the two Spider-Man pointing. That's been a big meme, and that has become an iconics thing. And then, of course, they do things that are like iconic to the different storylines or from comics or cartoons or movies or whatever. This is Harley Quinn and what's her name? But yeah, so those are the different things that you can get from Heroclix. There's fun little collectible things. There's strategic things. There's ways of onboarding people into the game. There's just like every different version of every character. Even the most obscure characters have multiple versions from different storylines in the comics. That if you are a fan of the comics or the TV shows or the movies or the cartoons, there's going to be that character that you really liked somewhere in the game, and you can use that character to fight. Now, one of the issues with Heroclix that makes it more difficult to be a player of the game than, say, Magic the Gathering is storage. It's fairly easy to store Magic the Gathering stuff. Basically, you can get white cardboard boxes and throw all your cards in that, and there's nicer boxes and nicer storage solutions, but they're flat cards and they stack really well and they can be shoved off into a corner. Heroclix takes up a little bit more space, so like something like this is like a little plastic container that you get for tools or parts in a hardware store, basically. And the Heroclix will fit in this, and the other little things that you bring to the game that are part of the game also fit in this. And so you can port your things around nicely, but you don't have to do something like this for Magic the Gathering. Basically, if you're going to play Magic the Gathering in a store, you're going to have a deck box that's basically this big, as opposed to 4 times the size. So you could say that it's at least 4 times more space that Heroclix is going to take up, but in my experience, it seems like a lot more. And then the next bigger one is this thing, which Magic the Gathering players also use, except that they carry around in it, 6 different decks and all their tokens that they need. But this is just a lot of Heroclix, and it's difficult to find things in here. It's harder to organize it in here. You basically have to take everything out if you're looking for something specific. Like you have to take out, if you know it's in this bucket, you still got to take everything out of this bucket and dig through it. So again, at least 4 times more difficult to store than Magic the Gathering, if not more. And then when you've got a lot of Heroclix like me, there's these things which I got from a store called Canadian Tire in Canada, and these are basically for, I'm sure, screws, nails, that kind of stuff, but they're perfect for storing in Heroclix. And if you look at early early videos on the channel, the very first videos I post on here was organizing my Heroclix, 3 11-hour videos. So you can see the amount of time that's involved in this sort of thing, and also you can see me using these things. But basically, you put your Heroclix in here, and then I put a sticker that's a logo of the set right up here, and then I have binders that have the different logos of the set separated in different sheets, and then the cards for the characters are in those things. So basically you end up with, a lot of other plastic things that aren't cheap to store these things in. Like, for instance, that box thing there is probably like, I think it's like 30 or somewhere between 30 and 40 Canadian, right? Whereas to store the equivalent in Magic cards would be, I don't know, $2 or $3 for a long white box, and you would store 800 cards. So it becomes more expensive to store. It's about the same price to purchase, but you don't get as many figures as you would cards. But then again, you don't use as many figures as you do cards in Magic the Gathering. Usually your teams are anywhere from 3, well, it could be 1, but usually 3 to 10 or 12 figures nowadays. It used to be probably 3 to 5, but now it's closer to 12 because there's better, cheaper figures to build out your team with. Whereas with Magic the Gathering, you have a 60-card deck for standard formats, and then you have a 100-card deck for Commander, right? But again, your storage solution for those 100 cards is going to cost you $1, whereas the equivalent of storing just one team is, at least $15-20, right? So there is that issue with the storage, but I mean, I don't know, I kind of like this kind of storage, just because, I don't know, I like organizing things, as you can see from that video that I told you about from earlier. So my argument for getting into Heroclix is that it's more complex, more robust. You get these figurines, they're tied to these IPs. Much like now Magic the Gathering is doing Universes Beyond, except that I don't think these Universes Beyond really fit into Magic. They kind of fit, and they're kind of working, and people are enjoying them if they're pre-existing fans of the things. But Heroclix, it's baked into that thing. Now, granted, it was originally Mage Knight, and it wasn't baked in, but once it became Heroclix, and it's been doing that for 25, it's probably 20 years. It's been doing that for 20 years. There's no real argument that it isn't baked into the game in the way that Magic has only just started to do it. And maybe years and years and years from now, there will be, the Magic Universe Beyond Magic will have changed enough that Universes Beyond feel baked into it. But right now, they don't to me, whereas in Heroclix they do. So you have the complexity, you've got the IPs and the enjoyment of your favorite characters fighting each other. You've got the strategy, you've got the tactics, you've got this building of your teams, and then the social play. Other games have that to different degrees, but I think that Heroclix is the best for all that. I think Heroclix is more social. I mean, I think the pandemic proved that, because it was almost impossible to play it online. Like, people did it on Roll20, and they put a lot of effort into it, and they kept it alive, but it's suboptimal to play online until maybe Wizkids makes an app and it's digital and 3D digital. But they're not going to invest that kind of money in it because Heroclix isn't doing well enough for that yet. And in any case, even if they did that, you would still prefer to play it at the table. And so therefore, I think it is the most social game. I think it's the most complex game. It has the most strategy and tactics. I mean, it's more strategic than tactical, I think, and I think Warhammer's a little bit more tactical than strategic. But I think that the combination of both of them is higher in Heroclix, and the complexity of the game and how robust it is just more so than any other game. And I'm speaking from bias because it's my favorite game. I like the other games. I don't play Warhammer, but I do enjoy watching it, and I've wanted to get into it, but I haven't yet. I've played Magic since the 90s. I've played... I don't think I've ever played Pokemon. I don't really have a desire to play Pokemon. I might play Lorcana. I played a couple of games of Flesh and Blood. I've played a lot of other collectible card games that no longer exist. And a lot of board games that either are in print or are not in print. And I haven't found a game that I like more than Heroclix. Twilight Imperium might be close, but I think for me the best game is Heroclix, and that's why I think people should at least try it, at least try to get into it and see if you like it. And if that helped you, if that helps get people into Heroclix, I'm glad, because I want more people to play with, and I want other people that are into Heroclix to be able to walk into a store and be able to find strangers to play with in the way that you can with Magic and Pokemon, or even with Flesh and Blood. I just want people to be able to play together, and I want the game to grow, and I want people to be talking about Heroclix, because people haven't been talking about Heroclix in a very long time, and I think they really should. So that's all I gotta say. And if this video intrigued you, let me know. Let me know if you're gonna check out Heroclix. Let me know if you already love Heroclix. Let me know if there's anything I missed that I could do in a follow-up video to let people know about Heroclix. But thanks for listening.